Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show where we sift through, well, a mountain of global news, research, and insights. We try to boil it all down to what you really need to know.
Yep, we're here to give you that shortcut, help you connect the dots on everything that's happening out there.
Our mission today, as always, is to unpack a whole range of developments. We're talking deep space, tricky international diplomacy, some really surprising science, and of course, those pressing environmental challenges.
And hopefully you'll walk away with a clearer understanding of, the big forces shaping our world, maybe a few aha moments too.
Yeah, and maybe a fresh look at stuff you thought you already knew.
So today we're kicking things off with something pretty cool from our own cosmic backyard, actually.
All right.
New discovery.
All right, let's unpack this. Imagine you're looking through data from, like, the most powerful telescope ever, the NASA James Webb Space Telescope.
That's the National Aeronautics and Space Administration's Webb, yeah.
Right, and you spot something new, something tiny, but totally mind-blowing. That's what happened. Astronomers found a tiny new moon orbiting Uranus.
And when we say tiny, we mean tiny, like just a few kilometers across, which is a pretty incredible when you think about how far away Uranus is.
So before this, Uranus had, what, 27 known moons?
27, yeah. And a lot of those were found using big telescopes on the ground or, older space missions. Finding this little one, it just really shows what the Webb telescope can do.
This technology is just leaps ahead, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Its infrared capability, the sharpness of its images, it lets us see things that are incredibly faint and distant with a kind of precision we just didn't have before. It's not just seeing further, it's seeing like smaller and fainter details. That helps us figure out so much more about how things formed out there.
I mean, Uranus just keeps collecting them, doesn't it? First 27, now 28. It sort of makes you wonder what else is hiding out there.
Exactly. And this find, it really adds to the mystery of the outer solar system. Scientists are, pretty excited because finding such a small moon way out there raises all sorts of questions.
Like how Uranus formed.
Yeah.
And how its whole system of moons came together.
Precisely. Is this little moon maybe a captured asteroid?
Yeah.
Or perhaps a piece left over from an ancient collision? The data from Webb might hold the clues. It really pushes our understanding.
And speaking of cosmic surprises, we're not just looking way out there. We're getting new insights into our own star, the sun.
That's right. NASA's Parker Solar Probe has made a really groundbreaking discovery. It directly observes something called magnetic reconnection happening in the sun's atmosphere.
Magnetic reconnection.
Yeah, and this is something scientists have theorized about for, get this, 70 years. But they'd never actually seen it happen directly.
70 years.
Wow.
So, okay, for those of us who aren't solar physicists,
Mhm.
what exactly is magnetic reconnection and why is seeing it such a big deal?
Right. Well, imagine the sun's magnetic fields are like these incredibly tangled, stretched out rubber bands holding enormous amounts of energy. The theory for decades was that these bands could suddenly snap, rearrange themselves, and reconnect. And in that process, boom, all that stored energy gets released.
Okay, like a cosmic snap.
Sort of, yeah. And that sudden energy release throws out charged particles at incredible speeds. That's what causes things like solar flares and coronal mass ejections, big bursts of radiation and particles.
Wow, right, solar flares.
But the Parker Solar Probe didn't just see the flare after it happened. It literally flew through the area where those magnetic lines were snapping and reconnecting. It gave direct, undeniable proof of this 70-year-old idea. It's fundamental to understanding how our star works, how it releases energy.
So this connects to space weather, right? That term always sounds a bit sci-fi, but it actually affects us here on Earth quite a bit.
Oh, absolutely. Very practical implications. By seeing and understanding this magnetic reconnection process up close, we can get much better at predicting solar storms.
And those storms can mess with our technology.
Definitely. They send out streams of high-energy particles and radiation. When that stuff hits Earth, it can disrupt satellites, think GPS, weather forecasting, communications. It can even cause surges in power grids, potentially leading to blackouts, and it affects radio communications, which is important for planes and emergency services.
Wow. Okay, so understanding the sun's magnetic snap isn't just academic. It's about protecting our tech infrastructure down here.
Exactly. It's about being better prepared for these events that can really impact our daily lives, from, finding your way with GPS to literally keeping the lights on. It connects solar physics way out there to the stuff right here.
It's just amazing the variety of space exploration going on. While Parker's decoding the sun, our old pal, the NASA Mars rover Curiosity, is still chugging along on the red planet, doing its daily grind, basically.
Pretty much. It's been busy with some essential maintenance, actually, on its battery control boards. You need precise power for those sensitive instruments.
Right. And it's been taking pictures, too.
Yep, imaging a feature called the Cerro-Paranal Ridge, looking for geological clues about water in Mars's past, plus doing its regular atmospheric checks, like watching for dust devils.
Those Martian dust devils are always cool to see images of.
They are, and they tell us a lot about the weather patterns there. And all the while, curiosity keeps driving, heading to new spots to analyze rocks and soil.
Just steadily building up that picture of Mars.
It's that persistent, meticulous work that really forms the bedrock of planetary science. Even after all these years, Curiosity is still sending back invaluable data, helping us understand another world piece by piece.
It really is incredible. And it's such a contrast, isn't it? That slow, steady work on Mars compared to these spectacular but fleeting events we can see in our own sky, like this one coming up, well, happening right now, actually, if you're listening in real time, on August 20th, 2025.
Oh, right. The alignment.
Exactly. Tonight, or rather in the pre-dawn sky tomorrow morning, you'll see a thin crescent moon lining up really closely with Jupiter and Venus. They'll form this beautiful cosmic triangle.
And the great thing is, it's visible pretty much everywhere around the world.
A global celestial show.
Yeah, it's just a lovely reminder of, the clockwork of the solar system and the wonder you can see just by looking up. These alignments, they're predictable, sure, but they still offer this moment of connection, seeing the same beautiful sight from different parts of the planet.
From the clockwork precision of the cosmos, let's shift our focus back here to Earth, where things are often, well, a lot less predictable, especially in the realm of international relations. The same kind of careful observation and analysis we use for space is desperately needed when navigating global politics. The conflict in Ukraine, for example, continues to be this incredibly complex diplomatic chess match.
Indeed. And we're seeing some potentially significant moves. U.S. President Donald Trump is reportedly making a strong push for peace talks between Russia's President Putin and Ukraine's President Zelensky.
He's even suggested a three-way meeting.
That's the suggestion, yes. And apparently he's encouraging President Zelensky to be, let's say, more flexible in these discussions.
Flexible on what, though? That's the key question, isn't it?
It is. And according to former Republican Congressman Michael Patrick Flanagan, who's spoken on this, President Trump is advocating for Ukraine to consider making territorial concessions.
Concessions like?
Specifically, Crimea and parts of the Donbass region in eastern Ukraine. Flanagan's argument, or Trump's reported argument, links these areas to historical ties with Russia and Moscow's stated security concerns.
But President Zelensky has always said, no territorial concessions. Right?
Yeah.
That's been a firm line for Ukraine.
Absolutely. He's consistently rejected any negotiations involving Ukrainian territory. So this is a major, major point of friction. It bumps right up against Ukraine's sovereignty and internationally recognized borders.
Yeah.
Under international law, like the Geneva Conventions, a state's territorial integrity is paramount. So suggesting concessions is, well, it's legally and politically very fraught. It challenges that core principle.
And what about military involvement? Is the U.S. position changing there?
President Trump has confirmed he would not send U.S. ground troops to Ukraine. The suggestion is that U.S. support might come by air, using American air power, while perhaps European nations could provide troops on the ground.
A division of labor, sort of?
Potentially. Meanwhile, NATO military chiefs are busy trying to figure out security guarantees for Ukraine. What could actually be offered, and more importantly, what would actually work to deter future aggression. Those talks are ongoing, and defining effective guarantees is proving tricky.
Right. And then there's the money angle. It's getting really intricate.
It is. The White House, under President Trump, announced pretty steep tariffs on India.
On India? How does that relate to Ukraine?
Well, the strategy apparently is indirect. The idea is that hitting India economically might pressure Russia to end the conflict in Ukraine, possibly by disrupting India's economic relationship with Russia, making the war more costly for Moscow.
Wow, okay, that's like three-dimensional chess, using tariffs on one country to influence another.
It's certainly a complex use of economic leverage. And adding to that, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent publicly criticized India, accusing them of profiting by reselling Russian oil.
So tensions there as well.
Yes. It shows how global economic ties are being used as pressure points in really novel ways. It's not just direct sanctions anymore. It raises big questions about how far you can go using economic tools against a third party to achieve a geopolitical goal.
And there was something about the U.S. charging extra for weapons sent to Europe for Ukraine.
That's right. a 10% markup on arms sold to European allies, specifically for onward shipment to Ukraine. The justification given is that this markup helps cover potential costs of that U.S. air support we mentioned earlier.
So trying to ensure U.S. taxpayers aren't footing the entire bill for the air cover component?
That seems to be the rationale presented.
So it's this mix, pushing for peace talks, suggesting concessions Ukraine rejects, ruling out ground troops but offering air support, and using these complex financial levers like tariffs on India and markups on arms.
It's definitely a multifaceted approach, highlighting very different priorities. Ukraine's focus on territory versus Russia's stated security needs. And it marks a clear shift in U.S. foreign policy compared to previous administrations. Those discussions about security guarantees remain crucial but very uncertain.
Okay, let's move now to another incredibly difficult and tragic situation. The ongoing Israel-Palestine conflict. The humanitarian cost there is just staggering.
It truly is. There was a recent proposal from Hamas for a 60-day truce. This included the potential release of about half of the roughly 50 hostages they're holding.
A potential opening, maybe?
Possibly, but Israel's response has been skeptical. They're demanding the release of all hostages first, seeing a partial release as insufficient.
And militarily, what's the situation on the ground?
Israel's defense minister has approved plans for a major military operation targeting Gaza City. They've mobilized around 60,000 reservists for this.
60,000. That sounds like a significant escalation.
It's widely expected to be, yes. It will almost certainly increase tensions and worsen the already catastrophic humanitarian situation in Gaza, which is so densely populated.
The numbers coming out are just hard to comprehend. Over 62,000 Palestinians reported killed since this latest phase began.
That's the figure reported by Gaza authorities and cited by UN agencies, yes. And that includes nearly 19,000 children.
19,000 children.
Plus, over 156,000 injured and another 11,000 missing, many likely buried under rubble. The UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees, UNRWA, has stated very clearly that nowhere in Gaza is safe for civilians anymore.
It's almost impossible to grasp the scale of the suffering. A moment of silence feels needed for that.
Indeed. The human cost is immense. And internationally, there's growing alarm. UN experts, human rights groups, they're voicing serious concerns. They're pointing to the scale of destruction, the forced displacement of huge numbers of people, and suggesting that some Israeli actions could potentially amount to crimes against humanity under international law. The term open-air prison is being used frequently to describe the conditions under the blockade.
These are very serious allegations.
Extremely serious, and they're subject to ongoing scrutiny by international bodies.
And the international reactions are all over the place, aren't they? Like French President Macron calling for Palestinian state recognition.
Yes, and that drew immediate, sharp criticism from Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. He argued it effectively rewards terrorism and fuels anti-Semitism. It shows just how polarized and sensitive the international discourse is. Every statement is loaded.
And the U.S. position has also generated controversy.
Particularly regarding humanitarian access. The Trump administration denied entry to injured Palestinians seeking medical treatment in the U.S. At the same time, Israeli immigrants were being allowed entry, including for medical reasons.
That discrepancy caused quite an outcry, didn't it?
It did. Human rights groups heavily criticized it, arguing it appeared to prioritize one group over another in a dire humanitarian crisis, raising ethical questions about equal access to life-saving care. The whole situation is just layers upon layers of complexity, history, and trauma.
Absolutely. And beyond these two major conflicts, there are ripples and shifts happening all across the geopolitical map.
Definitely. We're seeing some interesting developments elsewhere.
For example, in Asia, there seems to be a bit of a thaw between India and China. Prime Minister Modi met with China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi.
Which is significant given how strained things have been since that deadly border clash back in 2020 in the Himalayas.
Right. And Modi is actually planning to visit China for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit, the SCO. The focus is apparently on boosting trade and cooperation.
That's quite a shift. A rapprochement between those two giants could really change the dynamics in Asia and beyond. It suggests a pragmatic move towards stability, perhaps influenced by the wider global shifts.
Then, over in West Africa, Mali is facing more turmoil. The former prime minister, Choguel Maiga, has been jailed on corruption charges.
Yes, and this is raising serious concerns about political repression under the military junta that took power in the 2021 coup. It seems like a crackdown on opposition figures.
And it's part of that wider, worrying trend of military coups in the Sahel region, isn't it? We've seen it in Burkina Faso, Niger.
Exactly. It deepens concerns about stability, governance, human rights in Mali, and it has knock-on effects for the whole region, impacting counterterrorism efforts and potentially fueling more instability and displacement.
On a more constructive, maybe complex note, there's this new corridor in the Caucasus region. Armenian Prime Minister Pashinyan assured Iran's President Pezeshkian that Armenia controls it.
This is the corridor linking Azerbaijan's exclave, Nakhchivan, to the mainland, right? Part of that U.S.-brokered peace deal.
That's the one. And get this, it's apparently been nicknamed the Trump Route for international peace and prosperity.
Interesting name. The idea is to boost economic ties, create new trade routes. But Iran is worried, aren't they? Worried about being bypassed or isolated.
That seems to be the concern. So Armenia is trying to reassure them while also asserting its own control over the route on its territory. It's a delicate balancing act between economics and regional power plays.
A real tightrope walk, trying to foster connectivity without alarming neighbors.
And here's a fascinating bit of diplomatic tit for tat. Nigeria says it's going to mirror U.S. visa rules regarding social media.
Ah, because the U.S. started requiring Nigerian applicants to disclose their social media history for the past 5 years.
Exactly. So now Nigeria is saying, okay, American travelers coming here will have to do the same. Fair's fair, basically.
It really highlights that pushback on what some countries see as intrusive vetting and the principle of reciprocity in diplomacy. It shows nations asserting themselves on issues of privacy and equal treatment.
Finally, a really concerning development in Peru, South America. President Boluarte signed into law a controversial amnesty bill.
Amnesty for whom?
For police, military, and certain self-defense groups for crimes committed during Peru's internal conflict between 1980 and 2000.
Wow, that was an incredibly brutal period. So this grants immunity for things like extrajudicial killings, disappearances, torture.
That's what human rights groups and the UN are saying. They've condemned it strongly, saying it violates international law and essentially halts justice for thousands of victims of grave abuses.
That's a massive blow to accountability. International law generally prohibits amnesties for such serious crimes. It sets a really dangerous precedent for impunity and undermines efforts to heal from that violent past.
It really shows the complex ways nations grapple with history, justice, and stability, sometimes making choices with profound international implications.
Absolutely. These geopolitical shifts, domestic decisions, they all ripple outwards.
Okay, from those human-made complexities, let's turn to the forces of nature and the march of technology. Both are powerfully reshaping our world, bringing both immense challenges and, well, sometimes startling possibilities.
Starting with the climate crisis, which is making its presence felt very acutely in different ways around the globe.
Look at Iraq, a country with such ancient roots tied to the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. They're facing one of their worst water crises in a century.
It's incredibly severe. Reports say it's the driest year since 1933, and the water levels in those two vital rivers have dropped by as much as 27%.
27%, that's catastrophic. What's causing it?
It's a combination of factors, obviously very poor rainfall. But critically, it's also about upstream water management dams and usage by Turkey and Iran, which control the headwaters. And unfortunately, domestic issues like corruption hindering effective water management within Iraq also play a part.
And the impact, especially down south in Basra.
It's dire. Severe drinking water shortages, agriculture collapsing, waterborne diseases on the rise. People are being forced to leave their homes. The reduced freshwater flow means salt water intrudes further upriver, making the water toxic for farming and devastating ecosystems.
It's a full-blown humanitarian and environmental emergency.
It really is, and it connects directly to those broader climate change patterns, intensifying droughts in already dry regions. It underlines the huge challenge of managing shared water resources in a changing climate.
And while Iraq faces drought, parts of Europe are battling the opposite extreme in a way.
Fire, yes. Southern Europe is seeing devastating wildfire seasons. Spain, for example, has fires burning that cover an area reportedly twice the size of metropolitan London.
Twice the size of London. That's immense.
It followed a brutal 16-day heat wave. Portugal is also struggling massively. These aren't just typical summer fires. The scale and intensity are described as unprecedented.
Driven by climate factors, presumably. Heat, drought.
Exactly. Prolonged drought, extreme heat, strong winds, the classic combination, but amplified. It's leading to urgent calls for declaring emergency zones, rethinking forest management, and accelerating climate policies.
It's just another stark reminder of how interconnected these climate impacts are. The heat waves, the droughts, the fires.
And the immense cost, not just environmentally, but economically and in human lives and livelihoods, it really underscores the need for both adaptation and mitigation efforts urgently.
But amidst these grim environmental stories, there is some good news. A real victory for environmental justice.
Oh, where's this?
In Chicago, in the U.S., residents on the southeast side, which is a predominantly Black and Latino community, have successfully fought against the expansion of a toxic landfill.
The Chicago Area Confined Disposal Facility, the CDF, that site has been a source of pollution near Lake Michigan for decades, right?
That's the one. Heavy metals, industrial waste,
Oh.
a real burden on that community. But after years of grassroots campaigning and a federal lawsuit, the Army Corps of Engineers actually withdrew their expansion plans.
That's fantastic news for the residents.
It gets better. The plan now is to work towards converting the site into a public park, turning a toxic burden into a community asset.
Wow. That's a powerful example of community action making a real difference. It really highlights the importance of environmental justice, ensuring that marginalized communities don't bear the brunt of pollution. It shows that persistence can lead to real change, even against powerful entities.
From the environment to the digital realm. Here's where it gets really interesting, maybe a little unsettling too. AI.
Always a hot topic. What's the latest?
Well, OpenAI updated its ChatGPT model to GPT-5, but apparently a lot of users are disappointed. They're saying it's less engaging, less, I don't know, personable than the previous versions.
Less engaging. That's interesting. Usually the updates aim for more capability.
Right, but here's the twist. Some users had apparently formed really strong emotional attachments to the earlier AI models. They were talking about them almost like virtual spouses.
Wow. Okay. That's intense.
And now, with the less engaging update, these users are reportedly feeling a real sense of loss, almost like a breakup. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman even acknowledged people forming unhealthy attachments.
That really dives into the deep end of human-AI interaction, doesn't it?
It does, and get this, as a psychiatrist, Dr. Keith Sakata has warned about something he calls AI psychosis, where vulnerable people might start losing their grip on reality, blurring the lines between humans and these sophisticated chatbots.
AI psychosis. That's
Yeah.
a stark warning. It really speaks to the double-edged sword of AI. Incredible potential, but also profound ethical and psychological questions we need to grapple with. Are we creating tools that could inadvertently harm mental health or distort our understanding of relationships? It forces us to think about safeguards and ethical design right from the start. Maybe that less engaging feel of GPT-5 is even a deliberate attempt to dial back that attachment factor.
Could be. It's a mind bender, isn't it?
Yeah.
Developing AI so good people fall for it, then maybe having to make it less good to protect people. Wild.
It truly pushes us into new territory.
But on the purely technological potential side, there are also big leaps. A major company just announced they've integrated AI with quantum computing.
Ah, the quantum AI synergy. That's been talked about as a potential game changer.
What could it actually do?
Well, the promise is vastly enhanced computing power. Quantum computers can handle calculations that are impossible for today's machines, exploring many possibilities at once. Combining that with AI's learning ability could revolutionize fields like finance, think complex market modeling or fraud detection, or healthcare accelerating drug discovery by simulating molecules, personalizing medicine based on huge data sets, or logistics optimizing global supply chains instantly. Problems we currently find intractable might become solvable.
So potentially huge breakthroughs in complex problem solving.
That's the potential, yes. Still early days for practical quantum computing, but the integration with AI is a major theoretical step.
And then there's this, the White House on TikTok.
Seriously, the White House has a TikTok account now?
Officially launched, President Trump himself apparently posted the first video.
Wow. Despite all the ongoing national security concerns about TikTok, the fears about data privacy, Chinese government influence, the potential ban.
Yep, all that's still swirling. There's that looming deadline for ByteDance, the parent company, to sell its U.S. operations or face being banned in the U.S., and yet the White House jumps on board.
That's a fascinating paradox. On one hand, it's clearly a move to reach younger voters, Gen Z especially, where TikTok is dominant, go direct, bypass traditional media. But on the other hand, it's embracing a platform the government itself has flagged as a security risk. It sends a very mixed message.
It really does. You can almost picture the meeting. We need to reach the kids. Sir, TikTok, do it. Slight chuckle. It highlights that tension between political outreach and national security in the digital age. How far do you go to connect with voters?
A really interesting tightrope walk for them.
Okay, let's shift gears again, moving into health, societal well-being. We've got some important debates, some inspiring breakthroughs, and some persistent challenges here, too.
Starting with a debate that's still very much alive. COVID-19 vaccination for young children.
Right. A major pediatric group is now actively advocating for vaccinating even infants and toddlers against COVID-19.
Their argument focuses on protecting kids from severe disease, complications like MIS-C and long COVID, especially as they gather in daycares and preschools. They also point to the contribution to overall community immunity.
But this goes directly against the views of people like Robert F. Kennedy Jr., right, who's been very skeptical about the need for these vaccines in young kids.
Correct. RFK Jr. and others have consistently questioned the necessity and potential long-term risks for younger populations, arguing the risk of severe COVID is generally lower for them compared to potential vaccine side effects.
So it leaves parents caught in the middle of these conflicting messages, especially with schools reopening. It's tough.
It really highlights the challenge of public health communication when experts and public figures disagree. The key takeaway for listeners, really, is to look critically at information from multiple credible sources, understand the data as best you can, and, most importantly, talk to your trusted doctor or pediatrician about what's right for your child's specific situation.
Good advice. Now, away from debates, let's talk about some truly inspiring medical progress. This story is amazing. Sarah Ezekiel, a 34-year-old mother in the UK with motor neuron disease, MND.
MND, yes, a devastating condition that often leads to losing the ability to speak.
Exactly, she'd lost her voice. But using just 8 seconds of an old, scratchy audio recording of her voice.
8 seconds?
Yeah, they used advanced AI voice synthesis technology to essentially reconstruct her voice. She can now communicate using a synthesized voice that sounds uniquely like her.
That's incredible. What a difference that must make to her life, her connection with her family. It's about identity, not just function.
It really shows the profound personal impact technology can have in assistive healthcare, giving someone their voice back.
Wow, a truly powerful application of AI.
And innovation is happening across the board. In diabetes care, for instance, there's a growing push for better access to modern medications.
Including potentially using weight loss drugs more widely.
Yes, because these drugs don't just help with weight. They significantly aid glucose control and improve overall health outcomes for many diabetes patients. It's a more holistic approach.
It reflects that shift towards treating the whole patient, addressing related issues like obesity that heavily impact diabetes management, rather than just focusing narrowly on blood sugar numbers, using newer tools for broader benefits.
And here's a quirky one. Using keratin, the protein in hair, for dental treatments.
Keratin for teeth. Okay, that's unexpected. How would that work?
The research is exploring using it to help regenerate dental tissues. The idea is to move beyond just filling cavities or capping teeth toward actually helping gum or pulp tissue repair itself naturally.
Fascinating. A biological, regenerative approach could be revolutionary if it pans out.
And on the food front, experts are calling for updated allergen warnings, specifically for pine nuts and goat's milk.
Because they're being recognized as emerging allergens that more people are reacting to.
Exactly. So the labeling needs to catch up to protect consumers. It's a reminder that food safety is constantly evolving as diets change and we learn more.
Absolutely. Constant vigilance and adaptation are needed.
Now let's touch on some tough societal issues looking at justice and public safety challenges. Jamaica, for example. We often think of it as a tourist paradise.
But it struggles significantly with gun violence.
Terribly so. Homicide rates have been tragically high, peaking a few years back. While there's been a slight decline recently and hope for further improvement this year, the impact is still devastating.
It's not just the deaths, is it? It's the trauma, the fear that permeates communities, the financial strain on families dealing with loss or injury.
And the mental health toll, PTSD, anxiety, depression among survivors, witnesses, often without enough support.
It really tears at the social fabric. And there are growing calls in Jamaica for a more holistic approach, not just policing, but tackling the root causes.
Like poverty, lack of opportunity, and crucially, providing mental health support for communities scarred by violence.
Exactly. Recognizing that crime is often a symptom of deeper inequalities that need addressing through comprehensive strategies involving government, communities, everyone.
Switching focus, a development in a long-running, high-profile case in the U.S., Jeffrey Epstein's files. A House panel has decided to make them public.
After redacting victim identities, presumably.
Yes, victim privacy is being protected. But this follows years of scrutiny over how his case was handled. The release could potentially answer a lot of lingering questions about his network and affiliations.
It's a move towards transparency, which many have been demanding. Given the powerful people allegedly connected, public scrutiny of these files will be intense, looking for accountability.
And speaking of accountability, there was that incident with body cam footage showing a prosecutor being arrested in New England.
Right, that sparked a lot of discussion about power dynamics, didn't it? About whether public officials are held to the same standard.
It's that visual reminder, nobody's above the law. And transparency in how law enforcement interacts with everyone, including officials, is vital for public trust.
Absolutely. It raises important questions about integrity and impartiality within the justice system itself.
And finally, just a terribly sad piece of news from Nigeria in West Africa. A mosque attack in Katsina State.
Gunmen attacked during morning prayers.
Yes, killing at least 13 worshippers. It's thought to be a retaliatory strike, part of the cycle of violence involving armed groups, often called bandits in that region.
That area, northwestern Nigeria, has suffered terribly from these groups engaging in raids, kidnappings, extortion. It's created massive insecurity and displacement.
Just highlights the ongoing complex security challenges Nigeria faces and the devastating human cost for ordinary people caught in the middle.
A tragic reminder of the fragility of peace in many parts of the world.
Phew. Okay, we have covered a lot of ground today. A truly packed deep dive from spotting a tiny new moon around Uranus to decoding the sun's magnetic secrets right next door.
Yeah, and then navigating the incredibly complex diplomacy around the conflicts in Ukraine and Israel-Palestine, seeing those intricate strategies, the immense human cost.
We saw how climate change is hitting communities hard, from drought in Iraq to fires in Europe, but also saw that spark of hope with the environmental justice win in Chicago.
And we debated the frontiers of AI, the potential versus the psychological and ethical quandaries, the virtual spouses, the White House on TikTok.
Plus touching on healthcare breakthroughs, like giving someone their voice back, and societal challenges from Jamaica to Peru.
We really hope weaving all this together has given you, our listener, a richer sense of how interconnected everything is, how a discovery in space might eventually impact your phone's GPS, or how a diplomatic move on one continent can affect economies on another.
Yeah, connecting those dots, that's really what we aim for. That's the value of digging deep into the information shaping our world.
So as we wrap up, maybe something to think about.
In this flood of information we all face every day, with narratives constantly shifting, technology racing ahead, the climate changing.
Yeah.
How do you sort through it all? How do you tell solid information from noise?
What role does your own critical thinking play in navigating the future we're all building together, one headline, one discovery at a time?
What story or connection from today really stood out to you? What piece of this global puzzle feels most significant or maybe most overlooked?
Lots to chew on there. We hope you'll join us next time for another deep dive where we'll keep unpacking these crucial nuggets of knowledge.
Until then, keep digging.